Captain Elias Reed sat alone inside the military outpost on Earth's moonbase, staring at a glowing scroll in his hand. It wasn't paper. Not really. It pulsed with light, like it was alive. The message had been delivered by a tall alien, diplomat in silver armor, who bowed deeply before leaving without a word. The invitation said one thing: you are requested to attend the royal wedding of Princess Nerea of the Zarian Empire. Elias wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't a noble. He was just a human soldier with scars, medals, and stories that nobody wanted to hear anymore. So why him? Not someone with real power. General Hawk had looked at the scroll and laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it made no sense. They want you there, the general had said. Maybe they need a human face. Someone clean enough to stand next to the Zarian elite and not cause offense, or maybe, Captain, they're testing us. And now, Elias stood on the ramp of a shuttle, watching the shining world of Zyra grow larger through the glass. It was nothing like Earth. Its skies were green, and its clouds shimmered like silk. As the shuttle entered the atmosphere, towers made of crystal and floating islands came into view. Ships danced around the sky like silver birds. He was headed straight into a world that didn't want humans, or at least had always kept them far away the moment he landed. A group of Zarian guards approached. They were tall, their skin glowing faintly like polished obsidian. They didn't speak. One of them simply motioned toward a silver platform. Elias stepped on it, and in a blink he was inside the palace. The wedding palace was beyond anything he imagined. It wasn't made of stone or steel. It was alive, growing from the ground like a tree made of light and color. Flowers floated in the air, singing softly, and glowing fish swam through streams that floated above the ground.
Ow!
Alien guests moved gracefully through the halls, dressed in fabrics that shimmered like stars, and yet all eyes turned toward him. A human among them was rare to rare a female. Servant guided him into a preparation chamber, where attendants dressed him in Zarian ceremonial robes. They wrapped glowing sashes around his shoulders and placed a thin crown on his head. Elias felt like a child playing dress-up, but he said nothing. He knew better than to offend royal customs when he entered the grand hall. Music filled the space. But it wasn't made by instruments. It came from the palace walls, vibrating softly through his chest. At the far end of the hall sat King Zerandal, massive, cloaked in red and gold, with eyes like burning suns, standing tall. And beautiful was Princess Nerea, was unlike any alien Elias had ever seen. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and violet, and her hair flowed behind her like liquid silver. But it wasn't her beauty that held him still. It was the way she looked at him, not with curiosity, not with confusion, but with recognition. As if she had seen him before, or waited for him. Amaleus gave a respectful bow, and the king nodded in return. Then the wedding began. He expected to be a quiet guest in the back. He expected to watch from a distance. But as the ceremony unfolded, his name was suddenly called. Loud and clear, it echoed through the crystal halls, Captain Elias Reed of Earth. Honored guest of the throne, all heads turned. Whispers spread like fire. Elias stepped forward, unsure of what was happening. 2 guards escorted him down the center of the hall, straight toward the royal family. Nerea's gaze never left him. When he reached the front, she stepped down from the royal platform. She walked toward him slowly. Each step full of purpose. The music changed. Her hand reached out, and Elias, caught in the moment, raised his own and placed it in hers. The hall froze. No one moved, and no one spoke even. The floating flowers seemed to stop in the air. Then the king stood and declared something in Zarian tongue. And the translator in Ilias's ear buzzed. The bond is accepted by touch and presence as written in the ancient law. Elias turned to the crowd. Confused, the hall erupted in sound, a mix of cheers, gasps, and something else he didn't recognize, fear. The ceremony continued, but nothing felt normal. The guests looked at Elias with wide eyes. Some smiled, some looked angry. Nerea stood beside him, calm and silent, and the king watched everything with a pleased expression. When the music ended and the celebration began, Elias was pulled aside by a young Zarian noble who whispered sharply, "You do not understand what you've done, human. You've just married the king's daughter, Elias's heart skipped hand. Princess Nearea simply smiled at him, as if everything had gone exactly to plan. The celebration roared around him. Alien nobles danced in patterns that defied gravity. Firelights floated above their heads, and music shimmered through the air like silk waves, but Elias wasn't celebrating. He stood near a glowing pillar, clutching a golden drink he hadn't touched, his mind spinning with the words whispered in his ear, "You've just married the king's daughter." That voice, cold and sharp, kept repeating in his thoughts, drowning out the music. It made no sense. He was just a guest, invited without reason, dragged forward during a ritual he didn't understand. And now everyone looked at him differently. Elias turned his head slowly, searching through the crowd. Whispers followed his every step. Some aliens bowed lightly as he passed. Others just stared. And then, across the grand hall, he saw her again. Princess Nearea stood near the royal table, surrounded by ladies of the court, but none of them mattered. Her eyes were locked on him, not in confusion, not in fear, but in absolute calm. Her gaze didn't flicker, it didn't shy away, pierced through the lights. The noise, the space between them, as if it belonged to someone who had already chosen her fate and was simply watching it play out. Elias looked away, but not because he wanted to. It was because her stare made him feel exposed, like she knew something about him. "He didn't careful with your thoughts," came a quiet voice beside him. A new figure had approached. A Zarian noble, older, draped in a layered robe that shimmered like a night sky. His head was marked with gold ink, and his eyes held no warmth. "You've been chosen. Human," he said, "and choices here are not simple things. They are sacred. They carry weight you do not yet understand." Elias narrowed his eyes. "I didn't agree to anything," he replied calmly, "but you touched her hand." The noble said with a quiet grin, "In our culture, that gesture during the ritual of union is stronger than a signature, stronger than any word. It is life-binding," Elias wanted to shout, to say it wasn't fair, but instead he asked one question, "Why me?" The noble paused that. He said, "Is something only the king and his daughter know? But understand this, the blood of the Zarian throne has never mingled with outsiders, until now." With that, the noble walked away, leaving Elias in the storm of silence that followed his words. The air around Elias felt heavier. Every step he took now echoed louder. Every movement felt watched. Even the guards at the far end of the hall kept their hands close to their blades. Their glowing eyes locked on him. Then the drums changed. The music deepened. A new ceremony had begun. One Elias had not been warned about. A long red carpet unrolled itself across the hall, stopping just before the throne. Guests cleared the space, and the king stood tall. Raising one glowing hand, "Let the dance of choice begin," he declared. Elias watched as beautifully dressed couples stepped forward, moving to the center of the floor. They began a slow, ceremonial dance, graceful, elegant, almost like floating. Each step was part of an ancient rhythm. Each spin part of a story. A tap on his shoulder made Elias turn. It was Princess Nearea, stood inches away. Her face calm, her dress shimmering with silver light. She didn't speak. She simply extended her hand. Again as looked at her hand, then at the king, then at the watching guests. He didn't move. The hall waited. He could feel the weight of every eye. A single heartbeat passed. Then another, and then, unsure why he did it, Elias took her hand again. The music paused, just for a breath, then returned, louder than before now. They were dancing. Elias moved awkwardly at first, but Nerea guided him, her hand light, her movements precise. He followed her through steps that made no sense to his human body, yet something inside him responded. Her grip was firm but soft. Her eyes never left his gaze. They moved. The hall became a blur, and then he realized she wasn't leading him in a dance. She was leading him through a ritual. A second binding, a deeper one. He felt a heat on his chest. Looking down, he saw his ceremonial sash glowing, pulsing with the same light that shimmered in Nerea's necklace. She leaned closer, just enough for her breath to reach his ear. "You ask why you were chosen," she said. "It's because no Zarian could carry what's coming, Only you can survive it before Elias could ask what that meant. The final step of the dance struck the floor like thunder. A golden flame rose from the tiles beneath their feet, circling them in a glowing ring. The king raised both hands. Voice booming across the hall, "Let it be written, the bond is now eternal. I." Sealed by the dance of blood and flame, Elias looked. Around and shook hand, Princess Nerea looked up at him, still calm, still smiling, as if this was always the only path for him. The golden flame around them had not faded. It danced slowly in a perfect circle, pulsing with quiet power. Elias stood in the center, his hands still locked with Nerea's, his mind trying to catch up with everything that just happened. Had arrived at a wedding as a guest, and now, somehow, he was standing inside a royal ritual that ended with the entire empire watching him. Guards stood like statues, nobles whispered in their corners, and the king looked down from his throne. With a gaze that did not blink, the music had stopped. The crowd-witted Nia finally released his hand and stepped back, bowing her head slightly. "It is done," she said softly. Her voice Camillus wanted to speak to demand an explanation, but the king stood before he could say a word. He raised his hand and spoke in the Zarian language. And the translation echoed into Ilias's ear. "Let it be known, the ritual of flame has chosen a new prince consort, the human." Elias read. The chamber erupted, not with cheers, but with chaos. Some aliens shouted in protest. Others gasped. Many simply stood in stunned silence. Elias didn't know what a prince consort was. But the word prince stuck in his chest like a blade. A group of alien advisors rushed toward the king, whispering furiously. Elias saw one of them pointing at him with a shaking finger. The king raised his hand again. Silence returned. Elias took a breath, stepped forward, and looked directly at the throne. "Your Majesty," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I came here as a guest, not to marry your daughter. I don't understand what just happened. And I never agreed to anything." The king's lips moved slowly. The translator whispered again in his ear. "You touched her hand during the binding dance, and you completed the flame circle. The laws are older than the palace you now stand in. Is done." Elias shook his head slightly. "I didn't mean to follow your rituals. I'm not Zarian. You are now." The king replied. "By law, by bond, and by fire." The princess turned and looked at Elias, her expression still unreadable. "I chose you for a reason," she said, her voice steady. "Because you are the only one who can change what's coming, and because our world does not have time to wait for you to understand it slowly." Elias stared at her. "What's coming?" She didn't answer. Instead, 2 guards stepped forward. Not aggressively, but with authority. The prince must be taken to the Chamber of Understanding. One Sedelius followed them, not because he wanted to, but because the entire room watched his every move. He passed through tall arches, golden doors, and glowing passageways until they reached a smaller chamber carved with strange symbols. The guards left without a word, and the door sealed behind him. Inside the room stood a single figure. A woman, dressed in black robes stitched with blue crystal, her face hidden behind a golden veil. "I am the record keeper," she said. "I hold the true history of the Zarian Empire." Elias stood tall. "Then tell me why I'm here. Tell me what this is really about." The woman raised her hand and the room shifted. The walls became clear, revealing stars, ships, battles, and flames rising across the galaxy. "This empire is dying," she said. "Our people have grown weak with power and tradition long ago. A vision was written that one day a fire from outside our world would enter the royal bloodline and awaken the throne's last defense. That fire is you." Elias frowned. "You think I'm a weapon?" "No," she said. "We think you're the key to one." She waved again, and the images changed, showing a giant throne buried under the palace. Locked in crystal and surrounded by strange energy fields, it only responds to those bound to the bloodline through choice. Not by force. The princess chose you, and you accepted without knowing. Now the throne will answer. The empire will fall. Elias stepped closer. "What is the throne? A weapon? A living force? Last guardian, created long before. Even the Zarian rose, it sleeps now, but your presence has already begun to wake it. The images vanished, and the walls returned to gold. "What if I walk away?" Elias asked. "Then the empire burns. And the galaxy may follow," she said. "But if you stay, you become something no human has ever been, a prince of Zarian." And maybe more. The doors opened again, and Princess Nerea stood there. Alone. Elias looked at her. "You dragged me into this." She didn't deny it. "I gave you a choice, and you chose me with your own hand. Now the galaxy will know what that means." Elias took a long breath. Then he walked toward her, not as a guest anymore, not even as a soldier, but as someone standing on the edge of something far bigger than he ever imagined. The sun of Zira rose slowly, casting gold and violet light through the glass towers of the royal city. But inside the palace, the air was cold. Not from the weather, from the silence that followed Elias Reed. Everywhere he walked, he no longer wore his human uniform. His armor had been replaced by royal robes of deep red and silver, symbols of the Zarian throne stitched into every thread. His name was now listed on official records. His face was printed on the hollow scrolls. His identity, once human and alone, was now tied to the most powerful family in the Empire. Elias Reed was now the legal husband of Princess Nerea by Zarian law. By ritual and by bloodline bond, he didn't choose this life, but the law said otherwise. As he walked through the great hall, servants bowed, soldiers saluted, and nobles whispered behind elegant fans and glowing veils. No one dared speak against the king's command in public, but the tension hung like smoke. Many hated the idea of a human holding royal rank. Elias could feel it in every step, in every stare. The palace historian had explained it all in simple words in our culture. He said, "A dance between two people during the binding ceremony, followed by a successful flame circle, creates a marriage under the sacred laws. Once complete, it cannot be undone except by royal death or exile." Elias remembered the dance, the way Nerea had extended her hand, how everyone had fallen silent when he accepted. He hadn't known what it meant, but she had. She knew exactly what she was doing, and now, so did everyone else's. Throne room doors opened slowly, revealing King Zarandal seated on his massive crystalline throne. The king waved his hand, and Elias stepped forward.
Now dozens of nobles lined both sides of the room, eyes burning with quiet judgment. "You will be crowned as prince consort tomorrow," the king said without emotion. "It will seal the bond in
public view. There will be no more doubt." Elias stood tall. "I didn't ask for this crown, and I still don't want it," he said. The king looked at him, calm but firm. "This is not about what you want. This is about what the empire needs. Our enemies grow stronger, our bloodline grows weaker. But with your bond to Naira, the prophecy of fire becomes active, and the ancient throne begins to stir." Elias raised his head. "Then at least tell me the truth. Was I chosen because of who I am, or because I'm human?" Before the king could answer, a loud voice rang out from the side of the chamber. "He was chosen by deception, by trickery, and by a ceremony he never understood." All eyes turned as Lord Vale stepped forward. He wore battle armor etched with dark blue steel, and his eyes burned with open fury. "He is not one of us. He is a foreigner, an outsider. And now you want to give him the throne's favor, while those of true royal blood are cast aside." Several nobles nodded slowly, their silence a sign of agreement. King Zarandal raised his hand, and the room fell quiet again. "Lord Vale," he said, "you were once a loyal general. Do not become a voice of rebellion." Vale stepped back, fists clenched. "I speak only what others whisper. Let them deny it, if they dare." Elias turned to the king. "This won't stop. Let no matter what the law says, they'll always see me as a threat." The king nodded. "That is why you must survive your own coronation. If you can live through the trial of steel, you will earn your place by right, not just by bond." Elias frowned. "What is the trial of steel, princess?" Areya entered the chamber before anyone could answer. She stood beside Elias, her presence silent but sharp. "It is the oldest ritual of our people," she said. "A prince must prove his strength in body and mind, not against beasts, but against betrayal, because every new ruler bleeds before they rise." She turned to Elias. "You will face threats you do not see, words sharper than blades, and a choice that may break you. But if you endure it, No one will ever question your place again. Elias looked at her closely. You planned all of this, didn't you? She did not flinch. I planned to save my empire, and you were the only one who could survive what's coming. Elias didn't smile, but he didn't step back either. I'll take your trial, he said, but I do it my way, not as a prince, not as a pawn, but as a soldier. The king leaned forward, his eyes burning like stars. Then prepare yourself, Elias of Earth, because tomorrow you step into fire, and only one name will walk out alive. The doors opened without a sound, yet the silence that followed was louder than thunder. Elias stepped inside the hidden chamber, led by Princess Nerea. Her hand pressed lightly against a glowing panel that had accepted only her. Touch this wasn't part of the palace shown to the public. This place was buried deep beneath the throne, built of crystal veins and silver stone. It felt alive, like the walls were breathing. Faint pulses of light ran through the floor, leading deeper into the shadows. You said the throne is waking? Up, Elias said, keeping his voice low. What does that mean? Nerea didn't stop walking. It means everything is about to change. Not everyone is ready for that. They passed through a narrow passage, carved with ancient markings. The language was older than the empire itself. Older even than the stars above Zira. Elias couldn't read it, but something about it made his skin prickle when they entered the final chamber. The air changed. Warmer, heavier. At the center stood the crystal throne, not the one the king used in the Great Hall, but something far older. It floated above the ground, surrounded by 6 spires of glowing energy. Humming with deep rhythm like a sleeping heart, Elias stared at it, speechless though. Throne looked like it had grown from the ground itself, yet pieces of it shimmered with metal not found on any map. Symbols hovered around it in midair, shifting slowly, orbiting it like moons. This, Nerea said, is the true seat of power. It does not respond to blood alone. It responds to choice, to will, to sacrifice. Elias stepped forward, the light from the spires reflecting across his skin. Then why me? Why a human? Why not one of your own? Nerea moved to one side, pointing at an ancient panel embedded in the wall. It displayed a flickering holograph, a star map, with an empire burning at the edges long ago. A prophecy was carved into the foundation of this palace. It spoke of a fire from beyond the stars, a being not born of Zarian flesh. 8. Would bond with royal blood and awaken the final guardian. Elias looked from the map to the throne. You think I'm that fire? I know you are, she said, because the moment we completed the flame dance, this room lit up. For the first time in centuries, the throne stirred. And now it waits for you. Elias circled the throne slowly. And what happens if I sit on it then? The empire will know whether you are its savior or its doom, she said, her voice steady. Elias turned back to her. This was never about marriage. It was a plan to bind me to this place, to this power. Nerea nodded. Yes, I did what I had to, but that doesn't mean I used you. It means I believed in you before you even arrived. A sudden tremor shook the chamber. The floating throne glowed brighter. The symbols spun faster. The 6 spires pulsed in sequence. One by one, Elias stepped back. What is it doing? Nerea's eyes widened, it sensing danger. Someone has triggered the trial early there. Trying to kill you before the coronation. The chamber door slammed shut. Alarms echoed from hidden corners of the palace. Elias turned to Nerea. Who would do this? Who wants me dead this badly, Lord Vale? She said. He's planned this from the start. If you die before the trial, he takes your place and claims the throne by default. Elias looked at the throne again, symbols flashing red now. Then we fight back. But I need more than words. I need to know what this thing can do. Nerea stepped forward, her hand glowing with royal energy. She pressed it to a crystal plate, activating a hidden panel beside the throne. The projection changed. It showed starships, weapons, entire fleets powered by something buried beneath the palace. The throne wasn't just a symbol. It was a control seat for a system-wide defense grid, a power left behind by the ancients if you bond with the throne, Nerea said. You can command the crystal flame energy strong enough to destroy moons, but only if it accepts you fully. Elias clenched his fists. And what if it doesn't? Then it will burn you from the inside, body and soul. leaving nothing behind. Another tremor shook the chamber. Elias didn't hesitate, stepped toward the throne and raised both hands. I didn't ask for any of this, but I'm not running from it either. He placed his hands on the throne's arms. Light exploded around him. The spires rose higher. The ground vibrated like a storm was waking beneath their feet. Niera shouted over the noise, "Stay strong, the throne reads your heart. It will see if you're worthy." Elias gritted his teeth. Every part of him burning with unseen energy. Memories flashed before his eyes. War, survival, loneliness, loyalty, sacrifice, everything he had ever fought for. Then the light calmed the throne, accepted him, and when his eyes opened, his voice echoed across the chamber with power he didn't recognize as his own. "I am Elias Reed, and I claim the fire that was meant for me." The palace burned with celebration from above, but in the lower halls, death walked in silence while nobles danced under golden banners and alien symphonies echoed through the crystal towers. Elias Reed stood at the heart of the royal chambers, not in triumph, but in defense. The throne had accepted him. The ancient power had awakened. But its fire brought more than glory. It lit the shadows. And in those shadows, traitors had waited. "You need to leave the celebration." Nerea whispered, eyes sharp as blades. "You're not safe. Not tonight." Elias didn't move. "I thought the throne made me untouchable." "It made you a target," she said. "Lord Vale won't wait for the trial. He knows if you survive tomorrow, the people will see you as more than a guest. They'll see you as their future." Outside the chamber doors, soft music played. Laughter drifted through the corridors. But Elias felt the tension thick in the air. Looked down at the mark on his hand, a faint glow left by the crystal throne, still warm, still pulsing. A symbol of power, and now a beacon for those who wanted him dead. A guard entered the chamber. "Blood on his shoulder, Your Highness. We've lost contact with the Western Hall." The patrol there was ambushed. Someone's moving through the inner palace under stealth. Elias reached for the blade gifted to him by the king, forged with a blend of human steel and Zarian energy. It hummed in his grip. "Where is Vale now?" The guard hesitated. "Last seen near the Hall of Mirrors." "But that area has gone dark." Nerea didn't wait. She turned and started walking. "If we reach the hall before him, we can still stop this. But if he makes it to the heart gate, he'll override the security seal and open the chamber to assassins." Elias followed her, steps firm, heart steady. They moved fast through the glowing corridors. Statues of former rulers lined the path, proud, cold, unblinking. As they passed, some of the palace lights flickered, reacting to the energy still pulsing from Elias's hands. He could feel the throne's power inside him now, not full, but rising like a storm waiting for release. Suddenly, an explosion shook the hallway. Smoke rushed through the air. From the shadows, figures appeared, cloaked, fast, armed with twin blades of black flamasancery traitors trained for one purpose: to kill silently and vanish without a trace. Elias didn't flinch. He moved forward, blade ready, energy burning through his veins. The first assassin lunged. Elias turned, dodged, and drove his sword through the attacker's armor. The second came from behind Nerea, blocked the strike with her wrist guard, and countered with a precise strike to the throat for more. Appeared they didn't expect Elias to fight like a soldier who had seen real war. He moved like fire, unpredictable and wild, each strike pushing them back. Strength wasn't just physical now. The throne had given him more speed, instinct, awareness. It was like he could see their attacks before they moved. When the last assassin fell, Nerea looked at Elias, her chest rising with each breath. "You fought like you've done it 1,000 times. "I have," Elias said, gripping his sword tighter, but never with this much to lose. They continued forward. The Hall of Mirrors loomed ahead. Doors wide open, lights flickering like dying stars. Inside, the mirrors reflected endless versions of themselves. And in the center stood Lord Veld. Was alone beside him was a priest of the old order, holding a black crystal blade meant only for sacred execution, a weapon that erased the bond between a royal and their power. Veil turned slowly, his smile sharp and bitter. "So this is the hero of Earth, the outsider who stole our future with a dance and a kiss." Elias stepped forward. You sent killers into your own palace, betrayed your own blood. For what a throne that doesn't even want you veil, laughed once. Low and angry, the throne doesn't choose, it obeys. And now, I will. Force it to obey me, he raised his hand, and the priest rushed forward. Blade glowing Elias met him, head and iron blades clashed with sparks and thunder each. Strike from the black blade drained light from the room, each strike from Elias returned. Itveil tried to flank him. Nerea blocked the path. Her own blade raised the three of them fought in a dance far more deadly than any ceremony. Elias felt the pressure in his chest rising, not from pain, but from something awakening deeper. The throne's energy wanted out. He let it, his blade surged with light. Brighter than fire, sharper than sound, he struck once, the priest fell. Veil roared, and lunged. But Elias was faster. Now he spun, stepped forward, and landed a strike across Veil's chest, not deep enough to kill, but enough to end the fight. Veil dropped his blade, gasping, "You don't belong here," he said. Voice shaking, Elias leaned closer. "Maybe not, but I was chosen, and now." So was your defeat. The guards arrived seconds later, securing the traitor. Snira looked at Elias. "You just passed the real trial, the one they never talk about." The trial of betrayal. Elias stood tall, the glow in his chest steady now. "I'm ready for whatever comes next, even if it means becoming something I never asked to be." The sky above Zyra had turned red, not from sunset, for more enemy ships tore through the clouds, their black holes glowing with stolen Zarian tech. The outer defense rings had already fallen. Alarms echoed across the towers. Civilians rushed for shelter while palace guards took formation in the skies. This wasn't a raid, it was an invasion. At the heart of the royal city, inside the throne chamber beneath the palace. Elias Reed stood before the crystal throne, not as a visitor, not as a guest, but as the chosen one. The throne pulsed, with ancient energy, calling to him like it had waited lifetimes just for this moment. Mira stood beside him. Her armor forged from silver light and deep violet steel. Her expression was calm, but her hands were ready for battle. "They've come to break us from the inside," she said. "Their leader knows we're weak after the betrayal. He believes our throne has no champion." Elias stepped toward the throne. "Then it's time to prove him wrong." He placed both hands on the glowing arms of the crystal throne. Light exploded across the chamber. The 6 energy spires flared upward, sending shockwaves through the palace walls. The throne lifted into the air, spinning slowly, and Elias rose with it, not floating, not drifting, rising like a storm outside. The sky lit up. New signal echoed across the battlefield, a royal flare seen only once in a generation. The throne was awakening in orbit. Enemy commanders hesitated. The throne's power hadn't been seen in centuries. Some believed it was legend, some believed it was dead. But now they saw it with their own eyes, and fear spread like fire inside the chamber. Elias opened his eyes. They were no longer the same. His veins glowed with silver fire. His voice echoed even without speaking. He didn't feel like a human anymore. He felt like a bridge between two worlds. The throne spoke to him, not in words, but in feeling. It showed him the layout of the city, the falling defense lines, the weakness in the shield grid. It offered him control. He took it. Energy surged through his body. His right hand lifted, and from the ground rose towers of pure light that shielded the palace. His left hand clenched, and the main shield network reconnected with a sound like thunder. Ships in the sky turned, redirected by a force they didn't understand. Elias was now guiding Zyra's defense like a conductor of war, but it wasn't enough. The enemy flagship descended, breaking through the cloud line. It hovered above the palace like a blade ready to strike. Its weapons glowed. Red Niera stepped forward. "If that ship fires, the entire palace will fall." Elias looked up then. "We don't let it fire." He reached deeper into the throne's core, into the fire buried for generations. Pain shot through his body. His arms trembled. His mind filled with memories that weren't his past rulers, ancient wars, sacrifices etched in the throne's code. Then the voice came old. "Powerful and not entirely Zareen are not born of this world yet. You carry its hope. If you take this power, you take its burden." Elias didn't hesitate. "I accept the throne," responded. The spires broke apart, forming a crown of light above his head. The energy wrapped around his chest, forming armor that pulsed with every breath. His feet touched the ground again. But now the chamber felt smaller. He had become something more outside, the enemy flagship. Powered its cannon inside, Elias raised one hand. A beam of light shot upward, not as a weapon, but as a command. The old guardians answered. From the mountains surrounding the city, hidden towers awakened. From beneath the oceans, forgotten machines rose. They were not ships. They were defenders from the time before the Empire. Waiting for a signal that never came until now, they flew through the sky, surrounding the enemy flagship. The enemy fired, so did Elias. The two forces collided in the clouds. The explosion turned the red sky white for a moment. Silence returned. Then the enemy flagship fell, burning, broken. Defeated, the people of Zyra looked up and saw the glow surrounding the palace. They saw the man standing at its center, not one of them, not born of their world, but chosen by it. The throne chamber dimmed. The spires lowered. The crown faded, though the fire inside Elias remained. Nira stepped forward. Placing a hand on his chest, "You've done what no ruler has done in centuries. You woke the fire and saved our world." Elias looked out through the glass walls at the city below. "I came here by accident," he said, "but I'm staying by choice, not as a prince, not just as a human, but as your warrior." The royal horn sounded. Across the towers, the people cheered. In the history of Zyra, many had ruled by blood, but only one had ruled by flame. Only one, a human, became legend.